Good morning and welcome to New Mexico Rising, your go-to lifestyle show for everything happening right now across the state. I'm Kayla and this week we've got this.
Groove was actually developed along with help from Duke University's Common Sense Lab. So it actually includes reliable behavioral science.
Provide free, customizable, and interactive curriculum that educators can easily integrate into their classrooms. And then on top of that, we provide free training to help them actually do this with confidence.
Has access to official practice resources and a curriculum that they take students through. It is a way for them to build their confidence in the test with their peers. And we've gotten great feedback about it so far.
All that and more right here on New Mexico Rising.
Have you ever wondered what it really takes to send technology to the moon and then make it work once it's there? There's a new documentary called Drive Me to the Moon. It takes viewers behind the scenes of a groundbreaking lunar mission and the collaboration that made it possible. So joining us today is Fabiana Neves, Vice President of Castrol Americas, to talk about the film and why this moment matters for the future of space exploration. Welcome to the show, Fabiana. How are you?
Thank you for having me. All good here today. Thank you.
All right, for our viewers just hearing about it, what is Drive Me to the Moon and what story does the documentary tell?
Drive Me to the Moon is a documentary where you will see everything behind the scenes on what it takes to be in the moon, from the concept to design, to collaboration, to bringing innovation, technology, and all steps towards making sure, hey, we are in the moon again.
And the movie follows the Lunar Voyage 1 mission from early testing to touchdown on the moon. What do you think will surprise people most when they watch it?
Well, the first one is making sure that the collaboration with the private sector and how new innovation has evolved and made it possible for the first time ever be in the lunar South Pole. So that's a pioneer opportunity never done before. And you can see firsthand, right, so on the documentary.
Mission control is also a big part of the story. What makes this operation so unique compared to past lunar missions?
Mission control is the brain behind the machines and truly what monitors, give control, as well as receive the data and insights of everything that is happening from the moment of the launch until the machine is in there, right? So is the brain, is the women behind everything that happens, right? So the ability to monitor, to receive the images, the data, the insights, and then turn this into actions that we can learn and evolve further is definitely the heart and the brain behind everything happening there.
And Castrol has been involved in space exploration for decades. How did that experience shape their role in this mission and making of this film?
For over 7 decades, we have been partnering with NASA since the Apollo mission, worked with the Mars missions, with the rovers, the Opportunity, the Curiosity, the Perseverance rovers, and our technology have evolved and enabled these missions to be successful. Now partnering with Lunar Outpost and the private sector to making sure that we do evolve, that we bring the technology, and our lubricants enable those missions to be successful is critical, has been critical for Castrol. We are really, really proud of being partnering and working and evolving with the space industry.
With renewed excitement around lunar exploration right now, how does this mission help set the stage for what's coming next?
Yeah, great question. We are definitely keen to support the goal of finding a sustainable way of having human presence in the moon. This mission was a first step towards that goal, so we are keen to continue partnering and making sure that, hey, we can make this a reality and there is a sustainable way for having human presence in the moon.
So where can our viewers go check out Drive Me to the Moon and maybe get more information?
You can go to our website, castrol.com/drive-me-to-the-moon, and also you can find us on YouTube.
Fabiana Neves, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Some stories don't fade with time, especially when they involve trust, friendship, and betrayal. The new 3-part Hulu docuseries, Friends Like These, The Murder of Skylar Neese, revisits the 2012 disappearance of a West Virginia teenager and the shocking truth that followed. It's a story told through social media, personal interviews, and voices closest to the case. So joining us this morning are director Claire Titley and former FBI agent and polygraph examiner Dr. Rob Ambrosini. Thank you two for being here. How are you?
Thank you. Good. Thank you.
All right, Claire, what stood out to you about this case and what made you feel like it needed to be revisited now, more than a decade later?
I think one of the things that made me that was so kind of shocking about this case when I first kind of looked at it was the fact that it's 2012 and it's quite a unique era in a way for social media, because it was that era where social media was new. It was kind of a new frontier. It was the kind of Wild West though as well. And teenagers were experimenting with it. They were just putting their entire lives online. They didn't have the hindsight that we have now about kind of, you know, what could possibly go wrong. But also it was an era where adults weren't really looking at social media. So nobody was kind of checking up on them. There were no sort of checks and balances. And that makes that generation of teenagers at that kind of time particularly unique. They're almost like the guinea pigs of social media.
And the series used Skylar's own words and social media posts that you said. How did that storytelling change the ways this story unfolds for viewers?
I think it was really important to us to try and give Skylar a voice. We didn't want her to just be a kind of a plot point in a true crime, you know, where she's just the kind of victim and has no voice. We really wanted her to have agency in telling her own story, which is harder than it sounds, you know, obviously when she's gone. But she left behind this incredible sort of archive of tweets, of digital messages, but also her own writing as well. So we worked very closely with her parents to make sure that we could just bring her voice kind of front and center, and that she could at least be a part of telling this story from the inside out. So we interview her friends as well, quite comprehensively, so that we can hear this story from the 16-year-old perspective, including Skylar herself.
And Dr. Ambrosini, you spent 24 years with the FBI. You've conducted thousands of polygraph exams. When you look at this case, what role did interviewing and behavioral analysis play in getting the truth?
Well, interviewing really played a significant role. And long before I became involved in the case, the two young girls, they were interviewed by case agents, state troopers, local police investigators. And during that process, you kind of started seeing this evolution of what really should be fact, right? You know, when things are fact, it doesn't change, right? The truth is the truth, and it's always going to be the truth. But there were indications during these interviews that really did result in kind of like this evolution of their story. And of course, when that happens, you know, the logical investigation is, why is this person changing that story, right? So this case is kind of about the behavior that's exhibited, the ideation, what's going on, what are they thinking, and how are they communicating? And that really speaks to the social media that you have here, which again was kind of in its infancy stage, if you will, compared to what it is now. So really, a lot of it did come down to the really significant interviews that the investigators were doing.
And one of the most unsettling aspects is how normal these friendships appeared on the surface. How does this case reveal about the hidden conflict, especially among teenagers?
I think what we really wanted to do with this series was kind of remind people what it's like to be 16. It's very easy to forget when you become an adult, you know, and put that behind you. But about the fact that when you are that age, your brain behaves in such a way that, you know, your friends become much more important than your parents, than your family. Everything is very heightened. Your reasoning is off, if you like. Your idea of consequences, you know, is very different to that of an adult's. And when you have that combined with social media that is completely I say unregulated, but unwatched by anybody else, that's where the kind of combination was kind of so dangerous, really, I think, particularly for that generation who didn't have the hindsight that we have now.
And Claire, after someone watches all 3 episodes, what do you hope stays with them?
I hope people do reflect on their own use of sort of social media, on their children, on their family as well, and remember what it's like to be that age. But also, I hope that they come away from this feeling like they know Skylar, and you know, she would have turned 30 just a few weeks ago. So that's a life that she didn't have. And she should have gone to college. She wanted to be a lawyer. You know, there's all this life that didn't happen. And I'd love for people to come away knowing and remembering Skylar as she was.
Hey, I want to thank you two for joining me today. Friends Like These, The Murder of Skylar Neese, with all 3 episodes available to stream now on Hulu. I want to thank you two for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For a lot of high school juniors, this is peak SAT season, and it can feel like a lot to navigate. Families are asking what the test really means now and how to prepare without adding extra costs. Priscilla Rodriguez with the College Board is here to help walk us through it. Welcome, Priscilla.
Thanks for having me.
So why should students consider taking the SAT?
So the SAT remains an important part of students' college and career planning journey as they're finishing up high school. And that's really for 2 main reasons. So the first relates to college applications. Coming out of the pandemic, there are colleges that require test scores and there are colleges that make them optional. Having an SAT score keeps all your options open in terms of where you can apply. And it also gives you a measure that colleges understand and trust that shows what you've learned in reading, writing, and math, regardless of where you live in the country or what high school you go to. And having that single standardized measure is getting more and more important in a world where we're continuing to see high school GPAs continue to get inflated and where we know students are increasingly using AI as a tool in their schoolwork. The second reason is around scholarships. So we know that many families are worried about how they're going to pay for college. An SAT score can connect your student to scholarship dollars that may make the difference in their ability to go to college or not.
And what free resources are available to help the students prepare?
A lot has changed in terms of how students prepare and practice for the SAT. And that's because as a mission-driven nonprofit, we are committed to making sure that every student has access to great SAT practice free of charge. So there's a few things I want to make sure families know about. The first and the most important is Bluebook. That is the app where students will take the SAT on test day, but you can download it at any point. It's always free. And inside are 8 full-length official SAT practice tests. These look, act, and are scored just like the real thing. So when you take one, you get a score back, you get an analysis of your answers, and you get insights about which of those reading, writing, and math skills you could most improve on. And then students can take those insights over to our partners at Khan Academy. They host official SAT practice. They have curriculum, they have tools, resources, videos, and lessons for each SAT skill, so students can go there and do targeted practice on the skills they most want to focus on. Then the last resource I want to mention is our newest one. We just announced a partnership with another nonprofit. They're called schoolhouse.world. They host what they call SAT boot camps. These are done online via video, but they're live groups of students, peers, who are gathering together and being tutored by another student who's already taken the SAT and scored really well on it. That tutor has access to official practice resources and a curriculum that they take students through. It is a way for them to build their confidence in the test with their peers, and we've gotten great feedback about it so far.
How can SAT scores support college and career planning?
The SAT is a test, of course, but I hope students and families can also come to think about it as a tool. It's a tool, as I mentioned, for showing colleges what you've learned and opening doors to different colleges for you. It is a tool for accessing scholarships, and it's increasingly a tool for helping students think about their career aspirations. Using what they learn about themselves in terms of their strengths in reading, writing, and math from the SAT. We have tools on one of our websites called bigfuture.org, where students can put together their skills with their interests and really start exploring career paths they may want to go on and the education needed to get them there.
You mentioned the Bluebook app. How does the Bluebook app keep the digital SAT secure and fair?
It's a great question. We moved the SAT from a paper test to a digital one just about 2 years ago. And in that transition, keeping SAT scores secure was a top priority. That Bluebook app where students can practice and then where they take the real test, on test day, that app completely locks their computer down. They cannot get out of that app. They cannot access anything else, leaving the SAT a pure reflection of what they've learned in reading, writing, and math. And then we have two other layers of security. So the second is that as a digital test, we can now create unique combinations of SAT questions for each student testing on a given day. With paper, it used to be all the same questions for everyone on the same day. And the last layer is that even though the SAT is now digital, this is not a take-home test. You still take this in a room with other students and trained adult proctors who are there to make sure everything is safe and secure.
And where can students and families find more information?
The best place to go is sat.org. There you'll see upcoming test dates. You can register for a test, and all of those free resources, including the practice ones, are linked there.
Thank you for joining us today, Priscilla.
Thanks. I really appreciate it.
A lot of people are feeling stressed about money right now, and it's not just affecting life at home. It's carrying into the workday too, making it harder to focus and stay on track. Geoff Howard is the CEO of the Money Confidence Project, and he's helping people build more confidence around their finances. Welcome, Geoff.
Hi, Kayla. Thanks for having me today.
So, Geoff, let's start with the Money Confidence Project. What is it, and how does it help people?
Money Confidence Project is a nonprofit that focuses on taking the anxiety out of money. Financial anxiety is a huge issue. There's actually plenty of resources out there that teach us about money. However, despite all these resources, people are still expressing anxiety over money. So we asked ourselves, why is that? And how can we help people become more confident about money? And just as important, how can we help people develop healthy financial habits? At Money Confidence Project, we accomplish this by offering a suite of programs that actually get at the human side of money.
And you've created different programs. What are some of the ways people are supported through them?
We have programs for everyone. We have three main programs that all use the power of entertainment to address this human side of money. First of all, we have Million Stories. Million Stories is an entertainment channel that focuses on real stories about real people and their relationships with money. And then we have Venture Valley. Venture Valley is a competitive tournament-style video game where players actually learn financial skills indirectly through gameplay. And then finally, we have Groove. Groove is a personal finance app that adapts and identifies a user's unique money personality. Groove was actually developed along with help from Duke University's Common Sense Lab. So it actually includes reliable behavioral science.
And we're hearing more about financial stress at work. What does that actually look like for employees and employers?
Basically, financial stress is a productivity issue. More than 50% of employees have reported that they experience financial stress and that this financial stress actually impacts their work. And almost 50% of employees have reported that they've missed work due to financial anxiety. The impact of this is actually staggering. The estimated impact to employers is over $250 billion in lost productivity because of employee financial stress. And so this is why we recommend that all employers adopt some form of financial wellness programs for their employees.
And if a company does want to bring this kind of support in, how do they get started?
We offer both sponsorships and licenses for all of our products. For example, an employer could offer Groove to their employees as part of their financial wellness program and license that from us. We take what we receive in license fees and in sponsorship revenue. And because we're a nonprofit, we reinvest all of that back into what it is that we're doing. So to further develop our programs and to do the good work that we're already doing.
And where can people go to learn more information or maybe even get in contact with you?
Kayla, people can learn more about us, our programs, and how to partner with us at moneyconfidenceproject.org. I want to point out that our distribution model is dependent upon partnerships. And it's through these partnerships that we're able to actually deliver on our mission.
Geoff Howard, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Kayla, for having me.
If your insurance bill feels higher lately, you're definitely not alone. A lot of people across the country are seeing those costs go up, and it can actually be confusing trying to figure out why. So today, we're getting a clear picture of what's driving it and what you can actually do about it. Today we've got David Sampson with us, President and CEO of the American Property Casualty Insurance Association. Welcome, David.
Well, I'm doing fine. It's good to be with you, Kayla.
So what are some of the main reasons insurance costs are going up for so many people?
The first is inflation. Inflation peaked at 9% in 2022. That is the highest rate of inflation in 4 decades. And it's reflected every time you go to the grocery store, you go to the gas station, and insurance is no different. Our input costs have increased dramatically. The second major factor is increased storms and natural disasters all across the nation. And then the third major factor is insurance fraud and lawsuit abuse that is really driving the increase in insurance premiums.
And what are insurance companies doing to help keep coverage more affordable?
We're investing heavily in research to mitigate risk and build resilience into communities before disasters happen. For decades, the insurance industry has funded the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety on how to build more storm-resistant homes, whether it be homes more resistant to hurricanes in the coastal areas or hailstorms in the mid section of the country or wildfires in the west. We're also investing heavily in improving auto and highway safety to try to reduce the frequency and severity of auto accidents.
And how do things like natural disasters, inflation, and legal costs play into what people are paying?
Well, it's a huge factor, Kayla. Inflation has increased the cost of repairing homes when storms hit, both in terms of building materials and building labor. It's also reflected in the price of auto repair parts and labor. And then in terms of severe weather, we're coming off the costliest 5-year period of natural catastrophe losses in American history. $522 billion in insured losses over the last 5 years. And it's happening all across the country, whether it's hurricanes or convective storms and hailstorms in the Midwest, or, as I mentioned earlier, wildfires in the western part of the United States, which has contributed significantly to insured losses in recent years.
And what can viewers do to make sure they have the right coverage and aren't underinsured?
The most important thing is to have a regular insurance checkup. We encourage folks to meet with their insurance agent at least every couple of years to make sure that you have the right coverage for the increased value of the home and for the risk that you face in your particular area. Make sure that your insurance agent shops around from many carriers to make sure that you're getting the best policy at the best price. Discuss with your insurance agent about bundling your home and auto coverage, which often results in significant discounts. And finally, make sure that you look at your deductibles. You can often reduce your monthly premium by increasing your deductibles if you have a storm loss or an auto accident. But you want to make sure that if you increase your deductibles, that you've got money tucked aside in savings to cover those increased deductibles.
And are there any changes being discussed that could help lower rates or improve any options?
Well, there are. And the most important of those is public policies that can go after insurance fraud and lawsuit abuse. You know, a couple of years ago, Florida had the highest insurance rates in the country, both in terms of home and auto. And then in 23 and 24, Florida passed comprehensive legal reforms that got tough on fraud and reduced lawsuit abuse. And then in 2025, Florida experienced the lowest insurance premium increases in the homeowners line of business in the nation, and actual reductions in insurance premiums for auto insurance. And so it does make a difference. And this is something that we are very interested in pursuing in New Mexico.
And where's the best place for people to go if they want to learn more information?
People can go to apci.org/insurance for more details on all of these factors that I've talked about and tips about how to manage and make sure you have the right coverage at the right price for your budget.
David Sampson, this was all very good information. I want to thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Kayla.
Do you remember when money just wasn't something adults talked about around kids? Well, that's really changing. More families now want financial education taught early, just like math or science. Joining us now is Dave Zasada, Vice President of Education and Corporate Responsibility at Intuit, to break it down. Welcome, Dave.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
So what is driving the increased trend for parents and schools to teach financial literacy skills to kids?
You know, historically, most parents aren't comfortable talking to their kids about critical personal finance topics. However, Intuit's recent survey has found that's actually changing. Our data shows that parents' own financial stress is motivating them to talk to their kids about how to manage money. They also understand the value in having those conversations, given, most parents really didn't receive formal financial education while they were in school. And that's actually what's contributing to, this data that says that 88% of parents also want financial education taught in schools.
And why is Intuit so committed to helping solve the financial literacy gap problem? And what programs do you offer?
Well, there's currently 30 states that are now requiring personal finance to be taught to kids before they graduate high school. They actually have to take a full semester personal finance course. And that's creating both opportunities for kids and some challenges for educators. So teachers are often asked to implement these types of mandates without the resources or training needed to do so. And that's really where Intuit is stepping in. So through our Intuit for Education program, we provide free, customizable, and interactive curriculum that educators can easily integrate into their classrooms. And then on top of that, we provide free training to help them actually do this with confidence.
And when it comes to teaching financial literacy in school, what makes Intuit for Education's curriculum different and effective?
Well, kids today are part of a digitally native generation. So traditional lecture-based approaches really just don't resonate with them. So that's why with Intuit for Education, we take a much more interactive, hands-on approach using simulations that are based on real-world scenarios, powered by real-world tools that mirror the financial decisions that students are going to face in the future. So by being able to apply financial concepts they've learned through these types of simulations, students can actually see the impact of their decisions in real time. And that allows them to not just become financially literate, they become financially capable.
And for parents, teachers, or even students watching, how can they learn more about Intuit for Education?
Well, to learn more about Intuit for Education and get access to the free resources, they can visit intuit.com/education. And then it is Financial Literacy Month. So we're currently running our annual Hour of Finance Challenge. That's a nationwide initiative that advocates for all middle and high school teachers to spend even just an hour teaching personal finance. And to make that easy, we have free Hour of Finance interactive resources available where students can build financial skills like budgeting and credit by playing gamified simulations from Intuit and our partner Next Gen Personal Finance. They can even earn prizes for doing so. So the challenge is happening now through April 15th. It's not too late to join. Schools from all 50 states are already participating. And for any teachers who might be interested, they can go to intuit.com/hour of finance to sign up.
Dave Zasada, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
And that's going to do it for this week's episode of New Mexico Rising. Thanks so much for being here with us today. Be sure to check out our website at newmexicorising.com. Follow us on social media at New Mexico Rising, and head over to YouTube at NM Rising to catch anything you might have missed. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week on New Mexico Rising.